caught our attention with lithium is the fact that it's going to be extremely important when we look at the next decade as the world looks to decarbonize. This is due to the fact that lithium is used in lithium-ion batteries, which have quickly emerged as sort of the go-to technology for consumer electronics, and I would argue the undisputed leader in the electric vehicle market.
Hi, it's ggoernert, Vice President and Senior Investment Advisor, Canaccord Genuity Wealth Management and ggoernert Wealth Management. Now, welcome to the channel where we help you make sense out of your financial world. Now, today, I'm going to be joined by Canaccord Genuity Metals Analyst, Katie Lachapelle. Katie, how are you?
Hey, Greg, I'm good. How are you?
Good. Hey, now we had such a great response to the recent series we've been doing on the uranium space with you. If you haven't had a chance to check those out, please, I'll put the link there actually. Now, the other specialty metal that you've been following and taking a close look at has been lithium. Can you tell me a little bit about what caught your attention with lithium and tell us a little bit more about the space?
Yeah, for sure. What caught our attention with lithium is the fact that it's going to be extremely important when we look at the next decade as the world looks to decarbonize. This is due to the fact that lithium is used in lithium-ion batteries, which have quickly emerged as sort of the go-to technology for consumer electronics, and I would argue the undisputed leader in the electric vehicle market. If you're taking a look at lithium, there's really two main uses. So first, there's technical grade lithium, so the traditional use in sort of ceramics and glass. This is now a smaller market. And then there's chemical grade lithium, which is used in batteries and will likely account for more than 70% of lithium demand going forward if we look at our estimates. And that's mainly driven by electric vehicles. And this is a market that we argue is going to grow exponentially over the course of the next few decades. In terms of actual lithium, so lithium is mined globally, so it's mined in a couple of places, the main three countries being Australia, Chile, and Argentina at this time. These three countries alone account for 85% of lithium supply. And in terms of just understanding that, there's a couple key differences between the two. So if you look at Australia, lithium is mined in more of a conventional method. So you mine spodumene ore or hard rock, and then you process it into a concentrate for further processing in China. Whereas if you look at South America, lithium is found in what are called brines. So the brine is actually pumped to surface and then evaporated through a series of ponds and then processed further to make the lithium chemical. But I think over the next few years, as we look to increase supply of lithium, you're going to see a couple other countries come online as well. You'll likely see Canada, the United States. If you look at us here in Canada, there's actually quite a few high-grade spodumene deposits in Canada that are currently in the development stage in Ontario and Quebec, and I think we'll start to see some of those come online over the course of the next decade. And then same within the U.S. There's a little bit of production there now, but there is some significant resources hosted in clays, as well as oil field brines, and we'll start to see those come online. In short,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in short, the demand picture for lithium is looking extremely strong, and we're going to need sort of all of these projects to advance to actually meet that demand.
Yeah. Now, when you talk brine, does that infer that there's a high water content with it? And what are the water uses and what are the limitations? And I know that certain countries do have some water issues that they would prefer to send their water to people rather than to mineral extraction. So is that a constraint?
Yeah, so it's quite water intensive, especially in drier regions such as in South America. So that needs to be taken into account with respect to these projects and with respect to them being permitted. Essentially, they're taking the salt water from underground and they're pumping it to surface, and then they're evaporating it using solar evaporation. So this is one of the sort of key concerns going forward. And I think that's can be generalized from brines also to spodumene deposits. I think just tracking sort of your impacts on the environment, CO2 emissions, water, local communities surrounding you is going to be extremely important as we look to pull these resources out of the ground.
Mm-hmm. Now, who are the major players in this sector right now?
Yeah, so there's sort of two major categories. So you have the upstream side, so these are the actual lithium miners. The major players there would be Albemarle, SQM, Ganfeng, Tianqi, Livent, and Orocobre would probably be the big ones, and they account for probably 75% of current supply. And then there's a number of smaller developers that are looking to come online and smaller players in the space that are looking to come online in the coming years. And then there's the downstream side of the space. So the major players here would be the battery manufacturers. So think LG Chem is a big one, Cattle, Panasonic, Samsung. Essentially, how it works is the miners enter into long-term supply contracts with these major battery producers or automakers such as Tesla and Volkswagen. Um, and they supply these contracts to ensure they have the lithium for the lithium ion batteries. Some of these players are actually vertically integrated, so they're mining the lithium themselves and they're producing the chemical in the battery as
Oh,
well.
interesting. Yeah, no, so going forward, now, what have we seen with the lithium price over the past little bit, and what catalyst do you see things, moving it forward?
Yeah, so over the last little bit, I would say it's become pretty clear that electric vehicles are gaining traction.
A little bit,
And
yeah.
yeah, and they're here to stay. So I would say
Yeah.
both governments, car manufacturers, they've committed to very aggressive electric vehicle targets, and we're investing billions to electrify their fleets, whether it's the car manufacturers or governments investing in actually building out the charging stations. And although I'd say we still don't see it as much here in terms of uptake in North America, there are millions of electric vehicles being sold annually in China as well as Europe. If you look at Europe as an example, electric vehicle sales in Europe increased 143% last year. That's versus 2019. And that's despite a global pandemic where actual vehicle sales as a whole were down 16% on average. So it's this sort of growth that's making us extremely bullish going forward. And if we take a look at maybe the market a year ago or a couple of years ago, we were oversupplied. And now we've reached a point where supply is struggling to keep pace with demand. So with respect to your comment for pricing, we're in a very tight market right now, and pricing starting to reflect that. If we take a look at lithium carbonate prices in September of 2020, for example, so just over a year ago, the price for carbonate was around $6,000 a ton. The price for carbonate right now is $29,000 a ton. So clearly we've seen a dramatic
Wow.
improvement in just over a year. So in our view here at Canaccord right now, it looks like this peak pricing is here to stay. This is sort of due to two things. We think the market's going to continue to be pretty tight. On the supply side, because we were in a period of low pricing, there was a lack of investment in the space. So in terms of getting that production online, you can't just turn key and get it online. There's long lead times for production. So I would say in a tight market for the next few years, and then maybe come 2023, 2024, you could see a bit of a rebalancing. But if we still look long term, in terms of the projected demand for electric vehicles, we're going to be in a substantial supply deficit. So we're going to need really, really significant investment on both the lithium side, but also in terms of the network to be able to actually support the electric vehicle build out.
Yeah, I mean that's so reminiscent of our conversations about the underinvestment in the uranium industry that really resonates here. Where at some point we can see it coming, it's happening, and yet you just can't flip a switch and suddenly have that production there for you. So I agree that pricing power is there. So we've talked about the major players. We've talked about the catalysts you see going forward. What are the best ways, without mentioning any stocks in particular, but what are the best ways for generally that investors are using to leverage themselves to the to lithium?
Yeah, I think one sort of key catalyst I would say with respect to the equities, especially recently, is M&A. We've seen a lot of M&A recently. So if we take a look just over the course of the last few months, we saw Ganfeng step in and purchase 50% of Firefinch's mine.
Yeah.
They then went on to take out 100% of Bacanora. They then went on to take out 100% of Millennial Lithium. They were met with an overbid by cattle. And then we just saw Zijin take a step at Neo Lithium. So this M&A in the space is a really, really big trend we're seeing. And I think it shows that these battery makers are desperate to secure lithium supply. And I think this is going to be a key catalyst for the equities going forward. The Chinese are scrambling to find these assets. And a lot of these assets, I would say right now, are more of the traditional brines, mostly in South America and somewhat Africa. So I would say if you're looking at equities, any advanced stage developers that at this point don't have a significant partnership or an offtake in place, you probably assume that if it's a good project, you're going to see something on that front in the coming months.
Well, why don't we wrap it up here? This is a fascinating topic, and it's another exciting area, and I think definitely think you're onto something here. So why don't we circle back in a few months and see where we're at? Once again, Katie Lachapelle. Thanks, Katie.
Thanks.
Don't forget to check out my webpage, ggoernert.com.